Hello, friends. This is Scott. And look back at the last fall. Came in here with the lawnmower to the back pasture, and I mowed this thing, and it took me hours and hours, and about killed my mower. But this was how it looked going into winter. Looked nice. I mean, it needs to fill in, but it had been a long, dry, hot summer, and I hadn't had a chance to get much water on the pasture. But Mother Nature took care of that for us. And if you remember, we had feet and feet of snow down at the hobby farm. I mean, we probably had 4 to 5 feet in the pastures at one point. So we had plenty of water to start the year. And I did fertilize a little bit. And I hadn't had any animals on the pasture. And come into this last July, this is how the pasture looked. And made a deal with the neighbor to get a horse on here to start eating this down so I don't have to get the mower back or the weed eater to take care of all this. I also want to have large animals in my pasture to improve the pasture. You know, their manures and urine will definitely help the pasture grow more thick, and I'll reseed it also and do some other fertility things. But first step was on July 17th. The horse came and was dropped off, and pretty horse, and figured it would probably take a month for this horse to go through all this grass. Didn't have any plans to add any other big animals, just was going to let the horse have his way. And as we know, horses don't always eat everything, so we would see what the horse would leave. But then, a week later, the neighbor brought a cow and a calf over and dropped them into the pasture. So the horse had already been in here probably 7 to 9 days, and the cows just got here, and you can see this is kind of the way it looked when the cows arrived, and that was on July 23rd. And again, it's a mom and a calf, so it's a big mom. So these we'll see what 3 big animals do and how long it takes for them to go through all this pasture grass. Again, it's not the best stage of grass. The grass is literally 5-6 feet in the air, and it's all seed headed out. But cows eat hay and horses eat hay, so they like this stuff. But I don't think even the cows, they'll eat most of it, but I think there'll still be some weeds that the cows won't eat. It would have been nice if I would have had a sheep or a goat, and they would have been able to take care of the other things. They like a little bit of bramble, but horses and cows can be a little picky. But when the cows got on the pasture, they were a little leery of me, and so every time I'd get anywhere near, they'd take off. And the horse was also being kind of a bully. The horse had been with these cows before; they knew each other, so they settled in really well. But it started to rain a little bit, and again, they were all doing well. Not a bad-looking couple of cows. And again, the horse has done a pretty good job already of making paths through the pasture, but the cows will accelerate all that progress, I'm sure. So the next day, the day after this is my birthday, July 24th, I came out here, and the cows had already made quite the impact with their manures, and they'd flattened out a lot of the grass and eaten a lot of the grass already in literally a day. So there was a major impact. Now, the cows also were getting a little bit more comfortable with me, but they're still a little leery as I get closer, they trot off. And I'll show you how that changed here in a little bit. But I'm just going to take a walk around the pasture and see what the impact they had in literally what all those 3 animals had in probably 10 days. And they've gone through a lot of grass, and it looks like they've left lots of fertilizer too. So I'm going to have to get out here and rake those piles up or rake them out so that they're not just piles, and help that fertility go throughout the grass. But yeah, looking pretty good. The horse wore a pretty good path along the side of the pasture. But we'll see. Again, I won't be down here for probably 5-6 more days. We'll see what the impact the cows have now with the horse, and see how fast that they can eat through this grass. The neighbor asked me how quick I wanted this pasture grazed down, and I don't really care. I just want it grazed down so I don't have to mow it again. I will have to come in here again and probably knock down some weeds. But, the horse is warming up to me. Still doesn't like a lot of pets, but she's not afraid of me. But they still got a lot to eat, and we'll see how long this lasts. And Mr. Lincoln's mad because he's on the other side of the fence, and I, got to keep him out of here because it's probably not safe for Mr. Lincoln and with these big animals, especially with a cow and a calf. But I'll show you here in a minute how that worked when Mr. Lincoln snuck into the pasture here. But that's on the next trip down. But they got lots of food, and we'll check back and we'll see what happened. So I came back about 5 days later, and here's how much they've eaten. They went through a lot. Yeah. And I like the horse too because it reaches over the fence and is eating the fence lines also. The cows obviously aren't tall enough, but the horse is doing a good job on both the fence lines inside and out. But I was here with the cows, and I hadn't noticed that Mr. Lincoln had snuck in behind me. And you'll see here in a minute how Mother Cow, even with me standing there, there's Mr. Lincoln. Now again, Mother Cow a week ago was trotting off and didn't want anything to do with me. But now that Mr. Lincoln's in there, we see predator, it appears. So as I start walking a little closer, trying to keep myself between me and the cows and Mr. Lincoln, Mama Cow didn't like this, and she took a little bit of a stance, and then she took a look at Lincoln, and she said, I'm going to get him. So we had to get out of there. So got Lincoln out safe and sound, and back on the safe side of the fence. And when I left after a week, this is how the pasture was. Again, they've made a pretty good impact, but it's still quite a bit of grass. So we still got some more time on the pasture, and we'll see how they do here in the next week before I get down here again, or maybe 3 or 4 days, I think it was. But they've wore out a lot of the pasture, and I need to get in here and water. My maple tree was looking fine, and I thought we were watered it, but I got here and it just looked like crap. So I got to get some sprinklers out here and get this watered in. Start getting the recovery process back on the pasture, because these animals do, they make a big impact, and without me not being able to get out there and water much. But came back down on August 1st, and this is the look of how much they've gone through. They've gone through a lot. And I don't think we're going to have another week on this pasture. Maybe 3 or 4 days, 5 days maybe at the most. But they've eaten this down really well. And here in the corner, kind of on the north side, you get a little bit better look at the expanse of how much they've eaten. I got to get in that maple tree there. I'll say it was really dried up. I did save it, I believe. I got it watered in good, but I got to open that cage up, and I got to cut all that grass out of there. So that'll be a project once the animals are out of here. But as I'm getting ready to go on August 2nd, this is how it looked. And now all we see is cow. We don't see them, hidden by the height of the grass. So they're really going through this. And so we're just days away from these cows looking for a way to get out of here and go get that good grass elsewhere. But the neighbor did well. I mean, literally in maybe 17 days. Again, all these animals weren't on the pasture at the same time, but if they all would have been, it probably would have been maybe 8 or 9 days. We'd be in this same situation rather than 17. But everybody's fat and happy, and I was able to get some sprinklers on the pasture and start watering a little bit. The neighbor's helping a little bit with his irrigation water, but he's got to water his grass also, so get it going. So I've got to get this recovered. But maybe the next time I come down, that these animals will probably be moved over to his property, and I'll show you what's next on his property. Here we go. Now they've got some nice shade trees to get up under. But this is where the beefy boys lived last year, and the grass is as tall on this side as it was on my side of the fence, and his section is a little bigger. It goes around the corner. So I think these animals have a couple weeks of eating, maybe 3 even in this area. So I'm getting ready to leave. I just took a final look at the pasture, and it's looking good. And I'm just finishing up the watering before I pull the hose out of that pasture and head on back to Salt Lake City. But I'm happy that they've done a good job, and now I've got to get out there once the animals get moved and get it cut down. But as I was getting ready to leave, the big storm blew in, and we had flash flood warnings literally throughout the entire state. But it blew. The wind was really strong, and big dark clouds coming in. So I filmed a little of this for you just to kind of give you a sense of how it gets down here. Now, the temperature when I first got down here on August 1st was literally 63 degrees. I ran into a little rain on the way down, and it's probably in the 60s or 70s right now. And we've been in the hundreds, so high 90s to 100s all the last few weeks. So this has felt really nice to be down here. But it's nice to sit on the deck and protected from the wind, and just watch the wind blow through the trees. And again, the big storm clouds are blowing pretty hard, and as you see, there's some pretty good gusts going. So. Yeah, but it didn't rain much during this storm. It did rain, I think, the following evening, but this was just more of a wind event. It did rain a little bit, but not enough to do much. But here's a look to the west over the mountains, and you see those clouds are moving really fast. I thought that was kind of an interesting view. I like to watch the clouds and the movement. I'm from the Midwest where we didn't have mountains, and so you'd see storms coming from, way, way away, and they'd take forever to get there. But in Utah, we got mountains, so the storms kind of sneak up on us, and they pass us pretty quick. But the apple trees and the one pear tree are all doing good, but they're getting whipped in the wind pretty good. I've got to get some braces. I've got some just to tie these up so they don't get broken, but they'll be okay for now. But again, pretty good storm, looks like, and I think Salt Lake got hit pretty hard with the rain. But anyway, I really appreciate the neighbor for bringing the large animals over, and they've done their job, and I think probably the next time I go down, they'll be moved on to his pasture. So appreciate you watching this video, and I hope it's entertaining to you to see what large animals will do to a pasture in a very short period of time. Thanks for liking and subscribing to my channel. I appreciate it. Thank you.